When I was younger, maybe like 5, I went to bed and I woke up to the sound of something whispering. I thought nothing of it until I heard, "Hey, psst." And I looked up and I saw a black dog with yellow eyes standing on 2 legs. I started screaming and crying and yelled for my parents. When they came up, the thing hid behind a chair in my room. I was so scared I slept with my parents for a week, and I never saw the thing again. I had multiple dreams about it though. It always had this power that it could make me freeze, not be able to move, be able to do it in front of my parents, and they never did anything. Really creepy crap. I found that people in Turkey have had the same dreams and experience. The dog or being is called the jinn. It's a being that comes in their victims' rooms and hold them down, not allowing any movement, and the victim eventually suffocates. Well, this never happened to me. I had multiple dreams where it would do that. Just thinking about it scares me. When I was a teenager, I went on a hike in south central PA by myself in the Appalachian Mountains. It was a day I was playing hooky, so there was nobody else on the small trail, at least that I could see. You have to drive there, so there's no foot traffic. I was young and had been talking and singing, horsing around the whole time, totally unconcerned, yelling things off the top of the mountain, etc. On my way down from the mountaintop, I heard my dad's voice call my name and ask for help. I thought I was having a stroke and stopped and almost started to follow, thinking, WTF is my dad doing here? Did he follow me or something? Then I came to my senses and told myself, my dad is sitting in his office like an hour or more away. I heard it 2 or more times in a space of a minute or two. Call me by name, tell me to come here, help me. It sounded so insistent, like it was urgent. And it was without a doubt my father's voice. I have never ran so effing fast. I used to do this hike in bare feet and remember my effing feet up, hurrying down the mountain. I never went back, and to this day, I don't know what the F that was. I immediately drove to my dad's office and he was sitting there at his desk working. I don't remember if I told him what I experienced at the time or not. My mom was staying at a bed and breakfast in Newfoundland. She turned off the lights to go to sleep, and she heard a lady gently whisper, "Hello," in her ear. She also had the sensation of someone being in her room. The next morning at breakfast, she mentioned her experience to the B&B host, who casually confirmed that it's just Sally, and mentioned that other people have seen her ghost too. I was about 16 and home alone one night at my stepdad's house. Everyone had gone out for the night except for me. One thing you need to know about this household, it's in a pretty rural area, in a little village where everyone knows each other and a lot of family lives in the same town. Because of this, no one would ever use the front door. Everyone who came over would just come through the garden, use the back door, and walk right in. So it's about 10 p.m., I'm watching TV, and the doorbell rings. It startled me a bit. Who could be at this hour? Look out the window to get a full view of the front doorstep. No one's there. I'm looking out, the bell rings again, but there's no one there to ring it. My whole body becomes red hot with adrenaline and fear, and I'm frozen to my seat as it rings again. And again. I run to grab my phone to try to call my mom to come home, because I'm scared crapless. No answer. The ringing stops. About an hour later, my parents come home and I freak out and tell them what happened, and I'm pissed at them for not answering the phone. My stepdad chuckles. Haha. Oh yeah, that's my wife. It happens sometimes. His previous wife and partner for years and years had died a few years back. He said he tried to have the doorbell fixed only to figure out there's nothing wrong with it. Their theory is when the doorbell rings, it's her, reminding them she's still with them. When I was 6 years old, I went to a restaurant with my dad and grandparents. Walking into the restaurant, there was a small room to the right full of arcade machines. Can't remember if other kids were there. When we got to the table, I kept begging my dad to let me go to the arcade. He pointed to the gambling machines at the bar and said those are just for adults. I kept telling him that's not what I was talking about, but he wouldn't let me go. When we finished and started walking out of the restaurant, I turned to the arcade to point it out. There was nothing there but a wall. I've always slept with my bedroom door open. I have a small room and it feels smaller when the door's closed. Also, I'm very scared of the dark as a kid. Anyways, there's one night I woke up in the middle of the night for no reason. And I had a mirror across my room that faced the hallway. My bed was facing the mirror, so I could see the hallway from my bed. And that night, I looked in the mirror and I saw my mom in the mirror. She was looking down, giving me the creepiest smile. I blinked and she was gone. Not sure if that was sleep-deprived hallucination or what. It definitely wasn't my mom. I grew up in a house that originally served as an old folks' home. At night, the whole house would pop and crack. It sounded like people were walking up and down the stairs all night. My mom was always on board that the house was haunted. My dad just says just the house settling. The house in 1984 was 100 years old. One night, I woke up to the sound of a door slamming. I walked down the hall and peeked around the corner, looking down the stairs. At the bottom of the stairs was a closet. The door was open about 6 to 8 inches. There was a human face looking at me from inside the closet. I ran to the bathroom and tried to calm down. Finally, I mustered the courage to come out of the bathroom and look down the stairs again. Nothing there. I used to babysit my niece and nephew when they were 4 and 5 while my sister went to work. She lived down the street from me, so I'd walk down in the morning before she left and before the kids woke up. I got there one morning, and after she left, I laid down on the couch. I heard one of the kids run down the hall, and I immediately pretended to be asleep so I'd go back to bed and not get the day started yet. I felt my niece run by me on the couch. Her running stomp shook the floor, and I could hear the trinkets on the shelf shake. I felt the wind of her blow by me. Then it was quiet, but I knew she was still there. She leaned over my ear, moved my hair out of the way, and laughed right in my ear. And I just thought, the audacity of this girl. Then she hid under the end table of the couch. Realizing she wasn't going to go back to bed, I just woke up, got up, and looked under the end table. There was no one there. Completely baffled how she got up and out of the living room in literally 2 seconds without me hearing shook me. So I went down the hall to her room and was starting to freak out. My nephew was sound asleep in his bedroom. I got to my niece's room. She was sound asleep tucked under her covers. My heart almost fell out of my body. This sounds silly, but I stand by it. Almost 2 decades later, in the space between my bed and my nightstand, I saw a blinking eye just kind of looking off. It never looked at me. Of course, I would bolt out my room to get my parents. It would disappear. I didn't even step foot in my bedroom for 8 months straight. Also once, my mom was walking down the hall, got hit by the bathroom door that just swung open on its own. I could hear her yelling, "What the hell?" Then the smoke alarm started going nuts. We started to ask it questions. Beep once for yes, 2 for no. It cooperated with us for a short time. And then it stopped. A friend and I were driving up a mountain road to a camping site to join a bunch of our friends at night. We were sure we were on the right road, and we knew how long the drive should be, but the drive just seemed to be taking forever, so long that we started to question if somehow we got to turn around. We both started feeling uneasy, though at first neither of us voiced this to another. We kept passing owls in the trees along the side of the road. I mean dozens and dozens of owls. I spent a lot of time in the mountains, and I think it was lucky to see one, but we saw dozens, all in the trees on the side of the road, staring at us. When my friend had to stop to take a piss, both of us pretty much blurted out how unsettled we were and how this didn't feel right at all. Neither of us wanted him stepping away from the vehicle. He stopped as fast as he could and pretty much pissed out the door with the vehicle running and the lights on, then took off again, like it was some sort of race. Then we got there. Everyone wondered how we were so late. We did too. We told my father about it later, and he commented on how supposedly alien abductees often remember seeing owls. I swear to the end of my days that I don't remember a single break in my consciousness on that trip, but I have no idea how it took so long and can't describe how wrong the feel of everything was. I've had bears walk by 20 feet in front of me, elk wake me up brushing past my tent in the middle of the night, but nothing felt like that before or since. And now for the story that nobody ever believes, but whatever. When I was a kid, I was taking a bath and some lady in a black dress came in and started talking to me. Red hair, very pretty. Freaked me out because I didn't recognize her, but she was nice. Kept complimenting my toys and being very insistent that I be careful in the water. Then she was just gone. When I told my mom, she lost her mind because she thought she heard someone broke in and was watching her daughter bathe. Didn't matter how many times I said that she just blinked out of existence. She didn't believe me. I mean, who would? Then she told my aunt. We were living in the house they both grew up in after my grandmother died. When my mom made mention of the red-haired lady in black, my aunt went pale. She once saw her in her room when she was a teenager. I'm a night manager in fast food. I've told the story about what I've seen on the cameras before. It's after close, just the closers and I. I'm in the office counting down the drawers in the safe, keeping an eye on the monitor with all the camera feeds. I see someone take off a sprint in the area nearest the office, at a path that will lead them straight there, but nobody came in. Nobody but the closers who were cleaning and myself, who was in the office, was anywhere on the cameras. I have a new one. It might not be paranormal, but I seriously hope it is how terrifying it was otherwise. I'm a young woman living on the bottom floor of an apartment building. The way my complex is built, the bottom floor is a bit underground. The parking lot just below eye level if I look out the window. When I first moved in, I'd sleep with the blinds open because I worked in the evenings. I like to wake up naturally to the rising sun. I've woken up in the middle of the night by a noise in my window. When I put my glasses on and look, there's a human-shaped figure kneeling there, framed by the light in the parking lot. It's too dark to make anything out, but I remember something being there. After a few seconds, it moved out of view and left. I double-checked that all my doors and windows were locked, closed my blinds, and went back to sleep. I haven't opened my blinds at night since. I was dealing with a patient who had persistent hallucinations, but they were willing to deal with them and no longer flipping out, getting angry and anxious. There was one particular instance where he asked me to run my hands along a wall. I got about 2/3 the way up the wall when the hairs at the back of my hand stood up, and I actually got goosebumps. Kept proceeding to the end, and he asked me to go back to the same exact spot to confirm that there's not indeed bugs crawling up and down the wall and all over my hands. Of course, I said there was absolutely nothing there, but it still freaks me out to this day. Talked to a few people casually about it. We think it might have had something to do with electromagnetic interference or waves, which I could feel, and he could see. Me and two of my siblings were home alone upstairs. We heard the front door open, so someone went to check the outside door, checked the porch, but no one was up there. We thought it was nothing, so we left. Once we sat back down, we heard running downstairs in the basement and a child's voice asking, "Is someone here? I'm looking for my mom." My brother ran downstairs, and still there was nobody. Here it is normal to have a haunted house, and our ancestors believe we shouldn't really give the spirits any attention. So we ignored it, watched a movie till our parents came home. It was in my old apartment right before I moved out. My friends were staying over. I was on my phone at the moment. She got up and left somewhere. With the corner of my eye, I saw her entering my room. When she came back, she asked me why I didn't want to scare her. I was confused. I never left the room. She told me she was washing her hands, and she saw someone standing behind her in the mirror. But when she turned around, no one was there. I asked her what she was doing in the room, and she told me she wasn't there. Next day, another friend was staying over. She couldn't sleep at night and cried because someone was running around the apartment laughing. My dog was growling at the door. She heard an old lady crying. Thank God I slept like a baby. Didn't have to witness that. The next night I was alone and I could hear long nails tapping inside the closet and heavy breathing. Yeah, thank God I moved away. When I was a teen, my mother walked in my room, turned off my boombox, and walked out. Very strange, so I go after her to see what's up, and she's nowhere on the stairs. I look for her, and she's having a seizure in the kitchen. There was a decent-sized pool of blood from where she hit her head, too. No way she could have gotten there and bled that much, even if she sprinted. Wigged me out. So in the hospital, I tell her. She got really quiet for a bit and told me she had no memory from that whole day except from the floor. She could see me standing in the kitchen entryway. Then I ran past myself into the kitchen. She has no other memory till waking up in the hospital a couple days later. Decades later, I was dozing off in her hospice room. I thought I woke her up on my chair, hand on her shoulder telling me to take my dad to get some pie and coffee across the street. Then I actually woke up. It was so disorienting. I figured Dad needs food and some air, so I convinced him to go. When we went back into the hospice, her nurse came up and told us she'd just passed. I think my mom wanted my dad out of there so she could go. I was 19 and living at home. I woke up one night and see this huge, it was almost reaching the ceiling, black hooded thing. It was just standing there next to my wardrobe. I froze and stayed in bed. I was too scared to move. It was there for about 10 seconds before it vanished. I had nightmares for weeks with that thing in it. Fast forward 15 years, my younger sister, who has had my old room for years, asked me if I ever seen anything weird in the bedroom and tells me about the hooded thing she had seen. I never told anyone about what I saw, especially not my sister, who was only 4 at the time. In my dad's childhood house, he used to see a woman dressed up in white, carrying a candelabra. As he grew up, he chalked it up as childhood imagination. Years later, he overheard a woman at his job describing a ghost she used to see in her house, a woman dressed in white, carrying a candelabra. He asked where she lived. It was the same house he grew up in. Phew, okay. My cousin and I recalled this experience at her grandmom's house that I had blocked out of my mind. Her grandmom was bedridden at the time and the only one living in the house. We were laying in bed watching a show. Bedroom door was cracked. We could hear her grandmom snoring lightly. Her room was only separated by ours from the bathroom. I get sick to my stomach thinking about the next part. We started hearing footsteps in the hall. We immediately thought her grandma had gotten out of bed, but we could still hear her snoring. The footsteps were slow and heavy, then got closer. I was truly paralyzed with fear. My cousin sidestepped to the door and quickly closed it with fully outstretched arm. When we told my aunt the next day, she said, "Yeah, imagine how I felt growing up there. It won't hurt you." We had heard stories of the house being haunted, but that was our first-hand experience. Truly terrifying. My mother does tarot reads, and she had someone come in who got a read. They got a read and said they were afraid to get this one, and my mother asked why. Turns out the person had gone to 2 other readers and gotten the same spread each time. It's 3 times in a row, or a person got the exact same order of cards from a randomly shuffled deck of 72. Statistically speaking, that's obscenely improbable. I witnessed this myself. My sister's cat was walking toward the door to go out of the living room. He suddenly stopped, arched his back, fur on end, and hissed at an empty doorway before walking around 3.5 walls of the room to go out the same doorway. In the same house, I once saw a 6-foot-tall man out the corner of my eye and thought it was my brother-in-law, when in fact he wasn't home, and it turned out I was alone. At the same house, a small girl ghost had been seen by multiple people, but not me. It was known to play with my nephew's toys. My mom was pregnant with yours truly, saw a ghost in her bedroom. Happened when she turned the light off on the nightstand next to her. She sees this thing just floating in the corner of the room. She tries to focus to make out what it is, and she can make out a head, a torso, shoulders, and arms. Also seems to be clutching something like a staff against his chest. Starts to get closer to her, but floating, not walking, because there's no stride or sway. She can't move and is petrified by fear. She tells Dad, sleeping next to her at the time, to wake up. There's something in the room. As the thing's approaching her, she sees its eyes, staring right into hers. My dad finally reaches over her to turn on the light, and it disappears. Fast forward, it's my 16th birthday. I have dreads and into metal music, basic high school kid, I guess. I'm sitting at the table eating my birthday breakfast of French toast and bacon in the dining room. As I'm eating, she tells me the story and ends with, "Every year you got older, you look more like the thing I saw that night. Your eyes were the same." Her reaction was telling, was so serious and almost fearful. That's what made it so damn crazy to hear. I was genuinely terrified when someone set fire to a life-size doll and a cross in my cornfield a few years ago. My family always had cattle growing up. We ran them in different lots depending on how many we had and what land we were leasing, but they were typically in wooden pastures down the main road from our house in either direction. One small pasture where we ran cattle was up against an 80-acre lot that was heavily wooded, undeveloped, no roads, no trails, nothing. And this ran up against crops of engineers' land. Anyway, it was often enough that we'd be tending to the cattle there in some way and we'd be spooked by something in the woods. They'd put a good space between themselves and the fence line and stand in a rough line staring at the woods. This would have been during the day or in the evening, and most on tractor loading feeders, so making a ton of noise. Whatever was scaring the cattle wasn't intimidated by us at all. We didn't talk about it, but it did seem odd even as a kid. I hated when it would happen, intense feeling of being watched, feeling the need to always keep an eye on the fence line. We never lost any predators. We didn't have any bears or mountain lions there, though I heard young males would sometimes pass through. Coyotes would be too far shy for the noise and activity. It was random, but when it would happen, no consistency through the childhood in this pasture. I have no idea what was going on. My family owned a small hobby farm, kept lots of different types of animals, but it wasn't our main source of income. One day, when I was a teen, I was home alone. I'd spent hours talking on the phone with friends and cousins. I was on the phone laughing about something stupid, standing on our front porch. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw this hairy, man-like thing run past and around the house way faster than anything should be able to run. It seemed like a blur. I instantly felt this panic I haven't known, and I ran back in the house. Looked out all the windows and I never found this thing. No idea what it may have been. My grandpa had a farm with free-range cattle. He had a massive property. You'd always see the cows every day. They'd go off in the fields or in their little groups. But we knew they were out there. They just did their own thing. We visited the farm one day and my grandparents weren't home. They always had a spare key hidden on the porch in case a family member was visiting and they weren't around. Well, my mom unlocked the door and the alarm went off. It was loud. Because they're in the country, the alarm made to sound like a siren to alert the closest neighbors. It echoed all over the fields. We were in the house, calling family members on their rotary phone, trying to figure out how to shut off the alarm. Then I looked out the window. The cows. Cows from all directions running towards us. I've never seen anything like that. They were running at full house speed, every single one. Then they stopped, formed a circle around the entire house, standing shoulder to shoulder, then just stood there staring at us. It was so weird. Wish I had a photo, but this was before cameras were super accessible. They stayed there until my grandpa showed up. Then they dispersed, like his big security guards or something. I remember when I was younger having a bonfire for my birthday. I don't know what started it, but for some reason I looked up at the stars. Started to notice a few of the stars moving. They were in a giant triangle shape right above us. You could see them darting around, blinking out, coming back, closing in towards each other, growing further apart. Eventually, we're all looking up and watching in silence. We stopped when the horses in the field beside us started spooking. For a while, I tried to convince myself it was some kind of phenomenon that I've forgotten the name of, where because they're so small, you only think they're moving. The only thing that stops is the fact that we all saw the same movements, and the fact that only 3 of the stars were moving, gasping all at once when they dart, all of us confirming we did in fact see it kind of just disappear. Or wow, that one's suddenly very bright. Yeah, it was weird. My family had a small farm for many years. We lived on 25 acres in the middle of nowhere. The roads weren't paved and turned into deep muddy pits when it rained. For this reason, the school bus never attempted to pick us up near the house. Nope. My siblings' buses came later in the morning, so they had the pleasure of walking to the bus stop after dawn. I did not, and found myself walking alone in pitch black dirt roads in the winter. To this day, I don't know why I never used a flashlight. On both sides of the dirt road loomed thick, wild forest. Oftentimes, while traveling the road, I'd hear footsteps and a rustle of bushes, always on the left side for unknown reasons. Occasionally, I'd walk face first through a gigantic spiderweb that spanned from one side of the road to the other and freak myself out while wondering how huge that spider must be. Most mornings, I'd feel like someone or something was walking beside me in the woods. The bugs would fall silent and I could hear its footsteps. I felt its gaze upon me as we walked together to the bus stop. Never saw the thing. I was equal parts terrified and excited. Country people are just built different. This cycle continued for years. A tap on the shoulder while nobody else is in the entire effing field. Just me and the crops. Only one on the right side of my house. I went to my mom's bathroom to wash my hands and saw a pair of feet behind the half door open. Laughed and said, "Very funny, Ma, I see you," then finished up and left. Bumped into my mother in the kitchen unpacking. Nobody else was in the house. I'm glad whatever it was hid behind the door and didn't peek out. I don't generally believe in ghosts, but here's a weird one from high school. Not my home, obviously, but I was alone in the bathroom when this happened. My school bathrooms had really loud, heavy doors. The door to the bathroom and the stall doors were so creaky, there was no way you wouldn't hear someone coming in or leaving. One day, my friend group was on the benches near the washroom, so at some point during lunch, I go to use it. I was in one of 3 stalls, probably browsing my phone or pooping, when I hear someone crying, shut herself in the stall furthest from me. I was one end of the wall, she was the other, so I couldn't see her feet from my stall. I asked if she was okay, but didn't get a response. She just kept crying. I finished my toilet business and left my stall to go knock on her stall door to see if she was okay. The bathroom was empty. The stall doors were all open. I didn't hear anyone leave, either the stall or the bathroom exit. I even walked into the stall. I thought she was in and checked. Honestly, when this happened, I thought I just wasn't paying attention and didn't hear the girl leave. But then for about a week or 2 later, it happened again, in the same bathroom. My friends knew I didn't believe in ghosts. When I told them, they all knew I wasn't joking. When I was little, I remember, as my dad was taking us to bed, I ran up first to sneak behind my bathroom door. The plan was to jump out and scare my brother before bed. As my bedroom was just opposite the bathroom, he had to walk past to get to his room. However, behind the bedroom door was 2 strange men hiding. One had a beard and long hair, the other I didn't clearly remember, but I think he was very skinny. Guy with long hair whispered to me, "Go away." So I calmly went away and slept with my dad. Mom was working nights, and that wasn't uncommon for me, so I never questioned it. I was rightly spooked and didn't want to be on my own, but didn't tell my dad what I saw, so I was petrified inside. Straight up, thought I'd been told off by some creepy ghost. We were robbed that night. My brother also woke up that night to go to the bathroom and saw the downstairs light on from the staircase. At that time, he thought it was our mother, and would normally, if he got up early, run down and see her. For some reason, he didn't go downstairs that night and instead hopped in bed with me and our dad, too. When my mom came home, the downstairs was trashed. She was terrified something happened to us. She ran up the stairs in a panic, found us all in bed safe and sound. Home insurance was able to salvage most of the losses, and we got a dog not long after as a deterrent for thieves, which growing up never had another issue again. Back in high school, I'd usually be up all hours of the night playing games. I had a large dog at the time that would sleep in my room at night. It was 2 a.m. I was finally headed to bed, but my dog wasn't with me, so I ventured out to find him. I made my way across the house to the kitchen-dining room combo, standing in the only door frame that leads to the side of the house. We had an island in the kitchen with a stool that the junk mail was usually kept on. So I walk up, call for my dog, see him walk from behind the island to behind the dining room table set, knocking all the junk mail down as he did so. I huff and flip on the light. No dog. I freak out, scramble across the house, and end up finding him in my parents' room. Retell the story next day to my parents and younger sister, who often claim to see stuff in the house. My sister pipes up and goes, "Oh, that's the tall black thing. Yeah, sometimes it likes to crawl around on all fours." Big nope. In grade 9, my best friend and I having a sleepover at my house. My parents and younger brother were visiting my family, so we were home alone. After it was dark outside, we started watching a movie. We were laying on separate couches, watching the TV was situated next to a door frame that leads to the kitchen, bedrooms, and basement. In a matter of seconds, I see a feminine figure standing in the doorway facing me, and for some reason I instinctively said, "Don't leave me." My friend laying on the other couch also saw the figure and said to me, "Don't worry, he'll go away in a second." Thinking it was my younger brother. The figure just faded away, kind of like a mist, into the other room. We looked at each other and realized what had just happened. Then quickly turned on all the lights and sat on the same couch. We're 28 now. Still have absolutely no idea who or what that was or why I said that, but I still think about it often. I was upstairs alone. I saw a doppelganger of my mom a few years back, and I think she heard mine. I was sitting in my bed and looked up when I heard her coming up the stairs. She walked by my door, looked straight at me with no expression, walked into her room and closed the door. I said hi as she walked, but figured whatever, she didn't hear me, or maybe she was getting something from her room. Then about 5 seconds later, she yells up the stairs from downstairs and says, "Did you call me?" I'm not ashamed to say I freaked the F out. She came upstairs, looked down the hall, and said, "Did you close my door?" I didn't, and neither did she. She never closed that door because one of our cats primarily lived in her bedroom, so she could always keep the door open so the cat could come and go as she pleased. It wasn't just closed as the wind had shut it. It was fully closed and the windows were shut. Ma said she very clearly heard me say, "Hey Mom, come here," from upstairs. I had done no such thing. Never entirely sure what I believe and what I don't, but I was totally sober, not tired, and it wasn't some movement out of the corner of my eye. I very clearly saw a guy walk into my room, but when I went after him, there was nobody there. I checked in the closet, under my bed, everywhere. No one could hide in my room without me finding him. I grew up in a very rural area. Our house was at the end of a dead-end road in the middle of Midwest farm country. In high school, I was in cross-country and track and found it easiest to run late evenings on nights when there wasn't any practice. One night, which was fairly well lit by the moon, I was running the last quarter mile to my house and I saw someone else running toward me on the road from the direction of my house. I live on a dead-end road. There's nothing but farm fields behind it, and definitely wasn't my mom running. It surprised me so much I stopped for a second to consider what I was seeing. I remember exactly the runner was wearing, and I watched her run another 5 or 6 strides toward me before she disappeared or blended into the night like Predator or some such. Now, it could have been exhaustion or dehydration, I guess, but I've run a lot farther and a lot longer than I did that night without seeing anyone materialize and evaporate. I did never again either on that road or anywhere else. It was the scariest thing that ever happened to me. I ran home crying panic tears, and I'm not ashamed to tell you about it. I couldn't bring myself to run at night again for a month. My sister's room shared a wall with the living room, and the couch was against this wall. My dad and stepmom would knock on the wall if they needed anything. One night, my sister is doing her homework and hears a knock on the wall, so she shouts, "What?" No answer. This repeats several times before my sister gets pissed and storms in the living room, shouting, "What?" The living room was empty, as my dad and stepmom had left 30 minutes prior to go on a walk. There was a basement in the house that always made everyone feel uneasy, but was great for storage. Dogs refused to go down there. My dad was grabbing something from the basement, and while going back up the stairs, he had a sudden feeling of dread. The dog started barking like crazy, so my dad started running up the stairs. When he closed the door at the top, the dog stopped barking, and he felt relief. My sister was home alone and walking down the 40-ish foot hallway when she heard footsteps behind her. She looked back to see nothing. When she started walking again, the sound started again. She began running, and the footsteps picked up the pace as well. She ran out of the front door to a friend's house and refused to come home again. Alligators. A young woman in town married a man from another part of the country. He was a nice fellow, and they got along pretty well together. There was only one problem. Every night he'd go swimming in the river. Sometimes he'd be gone all night long, and she'd complain about how lonely she was. This couple had 2 sons. As soon as the boys could walk, their father began to teach them how to swim. And when they got to be old enough, he took them swimming in the river at night. Often, they would stay there all night long. The young woman would stay home all by herself. After a while, she began to act in a strange way. At least, that's what the neighbors said. She told them that her husband was turning into an alligator and that he was trying to turn the boys into alligators. Everybody told her there was nothing wrong with a man taking his son swimming. That was a natural thing to do. And when it came to alligators, there just weren't any nearby. Everybody knew that. Early one morning, the young woman came running into town from the direction of the river. She was soaking wet. She said a big alligator and 2 little alligators had pulled her in and had tried to get her to eat a raw fish. They were her husband and her sons, she said. They wanted her to live with them, but she had gotten away. Her doctor decided she had lost her mind, and he had her put in a hospital for a while. After that, nobody saw her husband and boys again. They just disappeared. But now and then, a fisherman would tell us about seeing alligators in the river at night. Usually it was 1 big alligator and 2 small ones, but people said they were just making it up. Everybody knows there aren't any alligators around here. Hey, I'm Connor from Bigfoot Anon, and I'm always on the hunt for the next big adventure. When you're on the trail for long hours, you build up quite the stench, enough to drive any skunk ape or yeti away. Luckily, I'm on the quest now for the solution to all my problems. Yeti bars. They do exist. Available in tons of different scents and fragrances. Check out YetiBars.net for more and use my code BA10 for a special offer. Clean like a beast. Yeti Bars!
The flesh of the unguided and non-believers fuel this void.